Over 2,500 years ago, in the northern regions of ancient India, modern-day Nepal, a figure emerged who would forever alter the traditional perceptions of wealth, power, and happiness. This extraordinary individual was Siddhartha Gautama, universally renowned as the Buddha. His journey begins with the noble Suddhodana, the king of the Shakya clan, and his queen, who faced challenges in their quest to produce an heir. Suddhodana and his wife, Queen Maya, longed for a child to continue the royal lineage. Their prayers were finally answered when Queen Maya experienced a dream of a white elephant entering her womb, a symbolic premonition of the birth of a great soul. Siddhartha was born into opulence and luxury, shielded from the harsh realities of the world. Despite his father's efforts to keep him away from suffering, Siddhartha's curiosity led him to venture beyond the palace walls. In his encounters with an old man, a sick person, a dead body, and a wandering ascetic, Siddhartha was deeply moved by the pervasive presence of suffering. These experiences ignited a profound quest within him to understand the nature of human suffering and the path to liberation. Renouncing his princely life, Siddhartha embarked on a spiritual journey, seeking wisdom from various teachers and undergoing severe ascetic practices. However, realizing that extreme austerities were not the answer, Siddhartha adopted the middle way, a balanced approach to spiritual practice. Under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, after days of deep meditation, Siddhartha attained enlightenment and became the Buddha, the awakened one. He discovered the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, foundational teachings that offer a guide to overcoming suffering and achieving inner peace. The Buddha spent the rest of his life sharing his insights and guiding countless individuals towards a path of compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. His teachings continue to inspire millions around the world, offering timeless wisdom on leading a fulfilling and harmonious life. In a dream, Queen Maya received a visit from a large white elephant with 6 tusks. The kingdom's priests indicated that this was a highly auspicious sign, signifying that the queen was finally pregnant and that her son was destined to be a great leader. The queen would give birth to her son during a journey. As she walked through the beautiful gardens of Lumbini and held onto the branches of a magnificent tree, the queen gave birth to her son. As she walked through the beautiful gardens of Lumbini and held onto the branches of a magnificent tree, the queen gave birth to her son. The child was extraordinarily beautiful, enveloped in a bright aura that signified his special nature. A great sage named Asita was called to meet the baby, and he fell into tears upon seeing the child. When asked why he was crying, he explained that it was because the prince was destined to achieve true liberation, something Asita had sought all his life. However, the sage would die before Siddhartha reached his destiny, and thus, he would not have the opportunity to find the answers he so fervently sought. When Siddhartha Gautama came of age to marry, he was presented with several young princesses from which to choose his wife. He chose Yashodhara, renowned for her beauty and youth. The king gifted the couple 3 magnificent palaces, one perfect for the summer, another prepared for the monsoon season, and a winter palace. They were known as the palaces of the 3 pleasures, where the couple had access to all material comforts for a life of pleasure, as nothing was lacking. The couple was blessed with the birth of a healthy child named Rahula, securing the king's succession. With his succession assured, the king finally allowed his son to leave the palace walls to learn about the kingdom he would one day rule. However, the prince's journey was carefully curated to ensure he did not encounter the world's misery. Despite being surrounded by the world's beauties, Siddhartha encountered a man suffering from a serious illness, something he had never witnessed before. This deeply troubled him, as he realized that those he loved could also succumb to such afflictions. Additionally, Siddhartha had never seen elderly individuals so frail and weak, leading him to ponder the finitude of life and the inevitability of death. He was distressed by the notion that death was always lurking nearby, and struggled to understand how people coped with its ever-present possibility. One day, he came across a homeless man who, despite his poverty, exuded an aura of immense confidence and peace. This man, an ascetic, explained that he had renounced a life of comfort in search of spiritual liberation from worldly suffering. The ascetic's words resonated deeply with Siddhartha, prompting him to reconsider his own life's purpose. Back at the palace, Siddhartha could not shake off the ascetic's words. It suddenly became clear to him that he must forsake his luxurious and pleasurable life to embark on a spiritual quest. Under the cover of night, Siddhartha Gautama secretly left the palace, initiating his journey of self-discovery. His first act of renunciation was to shed all symbols of his royal status. He cut off his beautiful long hair, a cherished symbol of vanity, and exchanged his silk robes for simple clothing, akin to that of the forest dwellers. Now alone and stripped of his previous life's embellishments, Siddhartha sought out teachers who could guide him towards enlightenment. Under the guidance of the master Kalama, Siddhartha learned the art of meditation and mastered the state of nothingness, a mental state where one's mind transcends material perceptions and experiences only the infinite. Despite the value of this lesson, Siddhartha felt it was not the ultimate answer he sought. He then studied with the master Adakarama Buddha, who taught him advanced meditation techniques that enhanced his self-reflection. Although Siddhartha was grateful for these lessons, he recognized that they were valuable yet insufficient for achieving enlightenment. Determined, Siddhartha traveled to the kingdom of Magadha, where a group of ascetics had gathered to practice their disciplines. Like Siddhartha, these ascetics had renounced life's comforts and lived simply. They recognized the newcomer's dedication and commitment to his practices, and believed that if anyone could attain enlightenment, it would be Siddhartha Gautama. While living with the ascetics, Siddhartha learned to master his body and senses, overcoming pain and hunger. His discipline became so rigorous that he barely ate, growing thinner and weaker each day. This period of his life is known as the 6-year fast. However, Siddhartha realized that extreme physical deprivation was detrimental, impairing his ability to think clearly and keeping him from his ultimate goal of enlightenment. He ended his fast when he accepted a food offering from a peasant woman. This act caused the ascetics to scorn him, believing he had abandoned the correct path. Reflecting on his experiences, Siddhartha concluded that neither extreme indulgence nor absolute austerity was beneficial. He embraced the middle way, a balanced approach that avoids both extremes. In spiritual practice and in life, balance is key. After years of seeking wisdom and enduring hardships, Siddhartha encountered a majestic fig tree. This tree, later known as the Bodhi tree, became the site of his final quest for enlightenment. Siddhartha crafted a cushion of grass and leaves, sitting with his face turned to the east. He vowed not to rise until he had attained enlightenment. As Siddhartha began his deep meditation, the spirits of the world celebrated, but the demons sought to prevent his spiritual breakthrough. Mara, the demon of desire and illusion, appeared to distract Siddhartha with visions of beautiful women and scenes of violence. Despite Mara's attempts, neither fear nor desire could sway Siddhartha's focus. In a final challenge, Mara demanded that Siddhartha produce a witness to testify to his right to enlightenment. Siddhartha simply touched the ground, declaring that the earth itself was his witness. On a full moon night, Siddhartha overcame ignorance and suffering. He recalled his past lives, understood the cycle of birth and death driven by karma, and grasped the Four Noble Truths, the path to ending suffering. At dawn, Siddhartha Gautama attained enlightenment and became the Buddha, the awakened one. Emerging from his meditation, Buddha had a profound understanding of reality, the cause of suffering, and the way to liberation. He spent over 7 weeks beneath the Bodhi tree, contemplating the depth of his experience. Gradually, he began to share his teachings, offering guidance on the path to enlightenment. After Siddhartha Gautama attained enlightenment and became the Buddha, he dedicated his life to teaching others how to free themselves from suffering. He understood that not everyone was ready to receive such profound knowledge, so he sought individuals who were more capable of embracing his teachings, remembering his fellow ascetics. At first, these ascetics were skeptical, believing that Siddhartha had abandoned his mission when he ended his fast. However, they soon realized that the man before them had transformed. He now radiated a serene energy filled with love and compassion. The cornerstone of the Buddha's teachings centered on the Four Noble Truths, which became fundamental to the practice of Buddhism. The first truth is dukkha, the truth of suffering. This truth acknowledges that life is inherently unsatisfactory and filled with suffering. It does not imply that life is only suffering, but rather that all aspects of existence are tinged with an unsatisfactory nature, including pain, illness, and death, as well as the more subtle suffering of impermanence and dissatisfaction. The second truth is samudaya, the origin of suffering. This truth identifies desire or attachment as the root cause of suffering. Buddha taught that our insatiable desires for pleasure, existence, and non-existence arise from ignorance, especially the misunderstanding of the impermanent nature of reality. The third truth is nirvana, the cessation of suffering. This truth declares that it is possible to end suffering. The cessation of suffering is achieved through nirvana, a state of complete and final liberation. Nirvana is not a place but a state of being or realization that transcends the limitations of conditioned existence. It represents the end of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. The fourth and final truth is magga, the path to the cessation of suffering. This truth outlines the method to achieve the end of suffering, known as the Noble Eightfold Path. This path consists of right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These truths became the central pillars of Buddhist doctrine. With the help of his disciples, more and more people began to practice the teachings and follow the Buddha's path. After many journeys, Buddha returned to his homeland and reunited with his elderly father and his son Rahula, who had become a Buddhist monk. Upon reaching the age of 80, Buddha decided it was time to prepare for his final departure from this world and attain final nirvana. He lay down between two blooming trees, gave his final instructions, and entered deep meditation, accessing nirvana for the last time. Buddha's body was cremated, and his relics were distributed and enshrined in sacred monuments, becoming places of veneration. Buddhism spread across the world, particularly in China, Japan, and Korea. Various schools and traditions of Buddhist practice emerged, all rooted in the foundational teachings and lessons of the Buddha, who revealed the path to enlightenment for those seeking it.